Hi everyone, I'm Veronica. I'm Thea's mom. She is 4 years old and was diagnosed with TANGO2 at age 2, and it's kind of incredible to be in a room and say, oh, my child has TANGO2, and everyone's like, yeah, I get it. There's no long story about what that is and what that means. It's kind of amazing. I am on the board for the TANGO2 Research Foundation, usually the one that types up the notes and updates you on Facebook. And I'm really excited to introduce Kasha and Mike Morris. They are the founders of the TANGO2 Research Foundation. They're amazing people who have just been propelling this research forward. They put their heart and souls into everything they do. They've worked day and night on this conference with Dr. Lalani and the team, and they are just heroes to our TANGO2 families. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Okay. I have a few things to say, and then Mike will as well. But like all of you, I am just so thankful to be here today as a representative of the TANGO2 Research Foundation, as a representative of the TANGO2 families, and as Ryan's mom. In order to tell you the story of how the TANGO2 Research Foundation came together, I really need to start with Ryan's story and our journey with him to a diagnosis. And Ryan's story actually begins on 9/11/2001. And as you can imagine, that was quite an emotional day. Just before leaving for my doctor's appointment, I saw the plane crash into the second Twin Tower on television. And I arrived at my doctor's appointment in tears and an emotional wreck. But when the doctor told me that my baby was coming that day, a calm came over me. I knew that something good was going to happen that day. I knew from the start that Ryan was going to be someone special and that he would make a difference in the world. And he's almost 18 years old now. He has an intellectual age of about 5. And so I know now that he's not going to be the future president of the United States. He's not going to be a doctor or a scientist. But I do know that because of Ryan, there might one day be new rare disease legislation or new research or new treatments that will save lives. And that makes him pretty special. The first year of Ryan's life, he thrived. He is my second child. So I wasn't a new mother. I had an idea of what to expect. And he met all of his developmental milestones, was saying a few words, crawling, pulling to stand. But on his first birthday, we noticed that something wasn't quite right. All of a sudden, Ryan was struggling to crawl and sit and pull to stand. He was off balance. And it was concerning, but after a nap, he was back to himself for weeks at a time. But by 18 months, we were seeing a variety of peculiar symptoms like the neck tilts and the muscle weakness and the extreme fatigue and a regression of his skills. Now, this was about the end of 2002, and this was pre-cell phones that had cameras, but the digital cameras were affordable about that time. So I got one and I videotaped these episodes and I brought them to the pediatrician. And immediately he sent us to the emergency room and we began our search for a diagnosis. And I think I clicked 0. Over the course of 15 years, we went to 4 different children's hospitals, saw dozens of specialists, and had hundreds of tests done, including muscle biopsies, multiple EEGs, spinal fluid testing, plus the usual blood and urine testing. And everything came back normal, even though it was quite clear that things were not normal. Through the years, we saw many symptoms, we had many questions, and no answers. Ryan continued to have a variety of these instant onset episodes. Sometimes it was balance issues, weakness, garbled speech like a mouthful of marbles, drooling, instant fatigue, confusion, a combination of these things all at once even. But even to this day, we've never found a consistent trigger. And they come on so quickly without any warning. So every time we saw a cluster of these symptoms that were really impacting the quality of his life, we would head back to a specialist to see if there were any new ideas to investigate that could lead us to a diagnosis. This finally happened in 2015 when Ryan had an instant extreme fatigue episode where he was nearly unconscious. And this was the worst we had seen in quite a few years. So he went back to his neurologist once again seeking some answers. And she made a referral to our third geneticist in 15 years. And from that referral, it took 1.5 years to lead to that diagnosis. It took over 6 months for his extensive medical records to be gathered and sent and reviewed, another 6 months to get an appointment, and the geneticist ordered the whole exome sequencing, and then it was another 6 months to get the results. So finally, on July 5th, 2017, we learned that Ryan had TANGO2 related metabolic encephalopathy and arrhythmias. And it was what we had been searching for, but it is not really what we wanted to hear. Obviously, this was a lot to take in. My husband Mike and I were most likely in shock at that appointment because we asked very few questions. We weren't really able to digest the seriousness and the poor prognosis that comes with this diagnosis. But in the following days, it did start to become real. We were thankful that Ryan had survived 16 years without having any of the most serious symptoms like metabolic crisis, rhabdomyolysis, and tachycardia. But now we know these risks, and that any illness, fever, dehydration, or loss of appetite could be a trigger of something potentially fatal. We immediately Googled TANGO2, and we found only 2 journal articles about it. And then we had to Google every other word to try to understand the medical terminology so that we could even begin to comprehend what this diagnosis meant for Ryan. I see some people going, yeah, I did that. It quickly became clear that our long-awaited diagnosis brought with it more questions than it did answers. And that's because, as most of you here know, at the TANGO2 epicenter here in Houston, it was only discovered as a gene leading to human disease in 2016. So it turns out that our timing, although long, it was actually perfect. If we had done genetic testing anytime during the previous 15 years, we wouldn't have found anything because it wasn't yet discovered. And as you know, TANGO2 is extremely rare. I always knew that figuratively Ryan was 1 in a million, but he really is 1 in a million. There are fewer than 100 children that we know of who have this disease worldwide. Now think about that. That's not many more than the people that are in this room, but spread out over 15 countries. Right now, not enough is known about the gene to understand its function even in a healthy body. So there is no treatment, no prevention, no cure. And as I'm sure many families here have experienced, because it is so very rare, very few doctors know about it. Fortunately for Ryan, his doctors at Yale New Haven Children's Hospital in Hartford, Connecticut, they had heard of it. They had seen another patient with TANGO2 before Ryan, and that child came to them in crisis, and it did not end well. But it did make them medically and professionally and emotionally ready to do all they could for Ryan. They were very motivated. They wanted to provide him with the best care available with the little information that was known. So he now has a team of about 12 specialists that manage his care. They provided us with the emergency protocol letter that we present at the emergency room if Ryan is sick, and within minutes he's admitted and doctors are treating, testing, and monitoring him. And we've used it 4 times, most often due to a very severe episode of fatigue or weakness. And each time his metabolic workup, his heart, his EEG were always normal. And this was such a relief, but so frustrating at the same time. We had already spent 15 years trying to find answers to help our suffering child. We had a diagnosis now. Why were we still struggling to find answers to improve the quality of his life? We were still helpless to make it better. And it's a feeling that I wish no one would ever have to know. But over time, our hopelessness is lessening. Right around Thanksgiving of 2017, we found something that we are extremely thankful for. We discovered a small private group on Facebook called TANGO2 Disease, started by 2 TANGO2 moms, Veronica and Maricela. And they, like us, felt alone and powerless after diagnosis. But when they welcomed us to this group at the end of 2017, there were 9 families with a total of 12 children who also had TANGO2 disease. And it was like discovering a long-lost family members that you never knew you had. This Facebook family instantly became our family. We found people who knew exactly what we had been going through, and we read and we reread every post, taking in every detail about every child with TANGO2. It was astounding how many similarities there were in this very small and very rare group of children. So I started taking notes and on each kid and their symptoms and what treatments they were doing and what triggers they had. And I ended up with like a spreadsheet, and I was trying to take it all in. And you know a disease is rare when the patients start sharing their latest findings with the doctors. And for the first time, we parents, even though we aren't medical experts, we are experience experts. Our little group realized that together, we are stronger. This TANGO2 family has grown over this past year, even over this past week. Our 9 families and 12 children have grown to a group of 57 families and 64 children that we know of. We represent 15 countries, including the United States, Canada, Brazil, England, Germany, the Netherlands, Hungary, Australia, Sweden, Ireland, Italy, Scotland, Saudi Arabia, Norway, and France. A little less than half are in the United States and are from 11 different states. Their ages range from an infant to a young adult of 25 years old. One little baby in our group has been in the hospital for almost a year, starting at the age of 7 months, and she's still there. She just can't seem to recover completely before having another metabolic crisis. Many children have had hospital stays that were months long and some multiple times as well. Some have never had a crisis, but instead they suffer from chronic seizures, one little girl having hundreds a day. Most were diagnosed because of a crisis. One was diagnosed with TANGO2 DeGeorge syndrome in utero before she was even born. But once born and having no symptoms of DeGeorge, they investigated and found that it was actually TANGO2. She now has symptoms much like Ryan's with no crisis. Last year, our TANGO2 family lost 2 children, Louisa and Sammy, due to TANGO2 related complications. In both cases, it happened so suddenly. And the deaths of these two children rocked our world. We all had the diagnosis. We knew a sickness could cause a metabolic crisis and that we should go to the hospital to try to prevent those life-threatening symptoms. But to have children dying at home unexpectedly was our worst nightmare. In some ways, those first 15 years without a diagnosis for Ryan were a blessing. We lived those years with far less fear than we do now. We took family trips and did activities that we would never do with Ryan, now knowing what could happen. Now we will live with that fear until treatments are found. And with few known adults having TANGO2, we know that a clock is ticking for Ryan and other children with TANGO2. We just don't know how fast. Mike and I knew that we had to do something. Mike wanted to start a research foundation, and the idea that we could run a research foundation seemed impossible to me. But he said that we can't wait until we know how to run a foundation. We've got to just do it and learn how as we go. So that's what we're doing. And I'm so proud of Mike for having the courage and the skills to make that happen. In December of 2017, we filed the state and federal paperwork to create the nonprofit TANGO2 Research Foundation. And ironically, our official 501c paperwork was date stamped by the IRS on Ryan's birthday, 9/11. One of the first tasks was creating an international board of directors made up of parents from the FACE group, who you have all met here over the last couple of days, and Dr. Seema Lalani from Baylor University here at Texas. We were honored to have her on our team, knowing that she had worked to discover the TANGO2 gene and was an author of both those medical articles that we found when we Googled TANGO2. It was overwhelming, though, to think about, how do we find researchers to study this? Do we need to rent labs and equipment? Do we need to pay salaries? Do you put an ad in the newspaper? How do we do this? But once again, I was reminded that together we are stronger. We were a group of patients and families in need of people to care about and study this extremely rare disease. And we soon found out that a caring group of clinicians and researchers were already out there, and they needed an organized patient group to conduct their studies. So thanks to Dr. Seema Lalani, the patient world and the medical scientific world of TANGO2 have now united. In just over a year from the conception of the TANGO2 Research Foundation, here we are united together at the first TANGO2 Family Conference, hearing about a variety of studies in progress at Baylor, in Germany, and in France, and all are working towards a better understanding of TANGO2. This is amazing. It's a better start than we ever could have hoped for. But we have to remember that this is a newly diagnosed, newly discovered disease. We are starting from scratch, and we have much to learn, and there is a sense of urgency. So our next step as a foundation is to plan and coordinate fundraisers, build up our donor base, so that we can continue to support research with a sole focus on TANGO2 and the multiple aspects of this complex disease. We now have hope that we can make it better. Going from powerlessness to progress is a priceless feeling to have. And as a co-founder of the TANGO2 Research Foundation, as a member of the TANGO2 family group, and as Ryan's mom, I am very grateful and proud to be a part of this milestone event here today. I look forward to what this group can accomplish in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Kasha, for that. I'm very proud of you. So, I always like to tell people as I give these presentations. I've stuttered since I was 8 years old. I don't want that to make anyone feel uncomfortable. I'm comfortable with it, but I've done a couple of these presentations, and I run a business, and just like our kids have TANGO2, this is the way that I talk. So I've got a couple of words. I think I've listened to Kasha tell Ryan's story, our story, many times over the past year and a half. And each time it feels like initially I'm on the outside, I'm looking in, and then after a few minutes I realize that that's my son, my family, and for a short while, I feel badly for myself. But then, as the story progresses, I realize that although this is a story that has elements of heartache, frustration, and uncertainty, what it is more than anything else is one of hope and opportunity. The hope that we as a group can make a difference in these children's lives. An opportunity that we didn't ask for, but nonetheless is in front of us. We need to embrace with all our heart. Although I haven't had this out loud up until this moment, because I didn't want to jinx it. I think the fact that there are over 100 people from 22 families from 6 countries, and a group of committed doctors and researchers, all gathered here in Houston in June of 2019 to talk about TANGO2 is as close to a miracle as I've ever seen. So this is the opportunity that is now in front of us. no one else is going to lead this. And there's everyone in this room, and those who we continue to engage in our cause. There will be challenges and disappointments along the way. We won't have all the answers, and there will be missteps. But if we keep moving forward with our grit and determination, and we can continue to support one another in the way that we need to, we will also be part of and witness amazing breakthroughs that further our understanding around TANGO2 and ultimately help these beautiful children, our children. I believe that all of us here can and will make this happen. I believe that the love that we as families have for our children will make us seize this moment and continue to act. I believe that a natural curiosity, drive, and compassion of the doctors and researchers who have and will take up this fight will shine a light on TANGO2. In closing, on behalf of the TANGO2 Research Foundation, I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to the following organizations and individuals. First off, to the families who have come here. We need one another, and this is a great start. To PCORI, who's without their generosity, we wouldn't be here today. To all of the volunteers who gave their time and energy to make this conference happen. In particular, the Lopez family who stepped up and took on the huge task of kids camp. So thank you to the Lopez family. Your strength and determination are an inspiration to us all. And I mean also to the Baylor College of Medicine for their unwavering support in this cause. In particular, Dr. Seema Lalani, Dr. Christina Miyake, and Dr. Lindsay Barrage. We are incredibly lucky to have you all on Team Tango 2, and we look forward to a continued partnership in the future. You are all amazing individuals. I mean, for all of us here, let's continue to turn this opportunity into action. We can and will change the story of our children. Let us write those pages together. Thank you.